Welcome to Once Upon a Coin, documenting the ongoing history of blockchain and cryptocurrency. And as always, I'm your storyteller, Jason Cassidy. Today's story is about one of the oldest forms of acquiring Bitcoin to ever exist. But if that's all there was to this story, then you probably already know by now that I wouldn't even bother telling you about it. The real scoop here is that back in the early days of crypto, you could actually get some Bitcoin for free, no strings attached. You didn't have to figure out how the hell to mine it, nor did you have to find an exchange to go ahead and wire some money in to purchase some. Nope. All you had to do was download a Bitcoin wallet, go to a website, complete a simple task, plug in your Bitcoin address, and then send yourself some coinage. I shit you not. You know, they say there's no such thing as a free meal. Well, I got news for you. If you were part of crypto near the very beginning, then you could have got yourself a heck of a lot more than just a free lunch. In fact, if you were patient and relentless enough, you could get yourself the whole bloody buffet. This is the story of Bitcoin Faucets.
Sun cast a shadow, a digital line is coming over the mountain and over your mind. Double down your Bitcoin, hang on for the ride. We're moving into the future, one block at a time. We're moving into the future, one block at a time.
Probably one of our more vintage episodes, the story of free Bitcoin is unique in the sense that it's destined to age like fine wine. And that's because Bitcoin has grown so much since then that the concept of free Bitcoin today is pretty much ludicrous. You'd have to be smoking some pretty strong AAA ganja to believe that this could be possible in a world where Bitcoin is hovering around $70,000 a coin, like it is today.
There's tobacco and marijuana in there. That's all it is.
And yet, back in the prehistoric days of cryptocurrency, not only was it possible to get yourself some free Bitcoin, you were actually encouraged to do it. To fully appreciate what I'm saying here, you first have to align your perspective with the state that Bitcoin existed in back in 2010. It had been released just a year prior in early 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto, and it was viewed as a fringe cypherpunk experiment with a libertarian slant at the time. You had to be hardcore into digital currency or part of the cypherpunk movement to have even heard about Bitcoin this early on. Luckily for all of us, Bitcoin caught on with this initial cohort. And once a core number of talented people had rallied around Satoshi to help support his revolutionary technology, the next step was going ahead and trying to convince the other 99.999999% of the planet that Bitcoin was worth looking into. One of the main figures in Bitcoin's early history, Gavin Andresen, a developer who worked alongside Satoshi, plays an important role in our tale. And that's because in 2010, he would be the first to create what would later become known as a Bitcoin Faucet. His creation, simply called the Bitcoin Faucet, was a website where you could go and plug your Bitcoin address in and have the faucet send you some free Bitcoin. And on June 12th, 2010, he officially launched the site, eager to see if anyone would be willing to take him up on his offer. Now, keep in mind, back in 2010, Bitcoin was basically worthless. So please don't go and have a heart attack on me here with what I'm about to tell you. Originally, Andresen's Bitcoin Faucet doled out 5 Bitcoin at a time to anyone who was willing to try the gimmick out. All you had to do was complete a basic CAPTCHA test to prove that you were a real potential Bitcoin convert, plug in your address, and boom, you had some coins coming your way. For context, at the time of this filming, a 5 Bitcoin would be worth around $350,000. This, of course, was being done to raise awareness and served as a form of marketing. The more people kept coming back to the site, the more they were exposed to the currency. And since no real peer-to-peer exchanges existed back then, it's easy to see why so many early adopters' first encounter with Bitcoin started by turning on a digital faucet.
Okay, you know what? Give me that thing. Yeah, I'll do one. We gonna do one. Do one. Do you, baby? Oh! That's a talented man.
As more awareness around Bitcoin began to form, its value started to increase in lockstep. To offset this, the amount of coins being sent out was adjusted lower to ensure that there was always enough for newcomers. The idea worked, and soon enough, more sites began popping up offering their own version of a Bitcoin faucet. By June of 2011, the price of Bitcoin had reached a high of almost $30 US a coin. And while this doesn't seem like a whole lot by today's standards, back then, seeing the currency go from mere pennies to this crazy price point left a lot of people in utter shock. Not surprisingly, it was just months prior when Andreessen decided it was time to turn the water off on his viral experiment. The days of the very first Bitcoin faucet were now over. In the short amount of time that Andreessen had been operating the faucet, he had given away a staggering 19,700 Bitcoin. And since I already know that you're wondering, if he had held on to all those coins, today they'd be valued at 1.3 billion US dollars. If you need to pause here for a moment to go ahead and change into a fresh pair of pants, yeah, well, I don't blame you. As far as I'm concerned, this is just truly a staggering historical fact. Of course, the value of the average Bitcoin faucet transaction back then wasn't worth very much, but it was free, and you could keep coming back every so often to refill your well. Eventually, if you did this repeatedly enough and you were willing to wait a very long time, then today you would have a ton of money. And you can bet your ass that there are a select few people out there who did just that.
Yeah. These are fantastic. Fantastic. You know, I'd love to get a jump on the next batch. Where do you come out of?
Over time, as more faucets popped up, the method of earning some free coinage evolved to solving puzzles and playing games. As the first wave of altcoins hit the market, faucets kept evolving and offered small amounts of them too. Eventually, the motivations behind running a Bitcoin faucet evolved from it being just a way to try to get the word out about the currency to having a website that was a source of advertising revenue. It had left the realm of philanthropy and avocation and was now turning into its own business model. I entered into the industry in 2012, and if you're curious about whether I use Bitcoin faucets, hell yeah, I did. And yes, I did try my hand at mining some Bitcoin as well back then, but look, I'm no fool. If you want to give me some free Bitcoin for simply looking into a game-changing financial technology, well, I'm already sold. In fact, it's highly likely that the first Bitcoin I ever received wasn't from a friend sending me some, mining it, or even buying it off an exchange. I likely got my first taste of Bitcoin from a faucet, as I remember using them back in the day to try out the technology without first having to make a large financial commitment. And the scenario that I just shared perfectly encapsulates the entire appeal behind Bitcoin faucets in the early days. It was everyone's way of dipping their toes into the shallow end of the crypto pool. As the years went on and the value of cryptocurrencies increased, the role of the faucet slowly faded. But that doesn't mean they don't exist anymore, because they certainly do. And you can go ahead and check out the faucet ecosystem anytime you want, as each one takes a different approach in how they operate. In fact, I highly encourage you check out a few faucets, especially if you're new to crypto. They often serve as a simple, risk-free introduction to a rather complex industry. And the more you look into them, the more types of unique faucets you're going to find. They've become such an entrenched part of crypto that even governments have managed to catch up with them. Some long-standing faucets have even decided to shut down. As politicians gain more knowledge on how to regulate cryptocurrencies, the risk-reward balance to running a faucet just wasn't there anymore for some operators. Despite the role that they serve to the industry having changed dramatically over the years, faucets are still a very important part of crypto's early history. And it's anyone's guess just how far back the industry would have been set if they never existed in the first place. I'm going to warn you right now, you're not likely to become a millionaire using a Bitcoin or crypto faucet today. The industry today looks nothing like it did back then, with the awareness around Bitcoin having already gone mainstream some time ago. But that doesn't mean you still can't have fun with them, snagging yourself a tiny bit of the latest new coin and testing out its ecosystem. Look, if anything, this episode should prove to you that there really is a benefit to being curious about your surroundings. Any one of us who had heard about Bitcoin back then could have tested out those faucets. You know, in a sense, Bitcoin faucets were the first true airdrops. You just need to be at the right place at the right time and engage. Those rare individuals who took advantage of this serve as a lesson. Never judge a book by its cover, because you just never know what kind of life-changing story rests inside of those pages. I hope you enjoyed today's stroll down memory lane. Until next time, have fun and enjoy life, my friends. I'll be back soon with another incredible story to tell you.